Hi everybody, it's Elizabeth and welcome back to my garden. Welcome back to my gardens in Northeast Arkansas. So today I'm bringing you guys a video in a series of what to plant in Zone 7 this month. We have a playlist. You can check it out in the description below. And last year I did not film for July. So I want to bring you what can you be planting in July right now in Zone 7. And for the time being, I have a tiny little cat with me. All right, so if you're gardening, you already know. It's hot. It's hot in July, especially in the South. Believe it or not, in July, this is a great time to be starting your seeds for fall indoors. So not in a greenhouse, it's gonna be super duper hot. But if you have somewhere where you can do some seed trays by a window or with one or two little grow lights, which are very affordable on Amazon if you're not getting like a big, huge, bulky setup, this is the time to be starting seeds for things that like to grow in the cold, cooler fall temperatures, but they cannot germinate outside in this heat. Now, I will go ahead and preface this warning. This is like a typical Zone 7 thing that you can start them now. Do you need to get up? Do you need to move around? Oh my God, it's just the cutest cat in the world. In the world. But you have to think about when you start something from seed, think about it's going to take it probably, say, ooh, I just noticed new blooms on my hibiscus. Ah, so pretty. It's going to take it probably, give yourself maybe 2 weeks to germinate, and then think about how fast things grow. So if you could transplant a seedling outside at 6 to 8 weeks, is it going to be cool where you're at in 8 weeks? So early July. So 8 weeks for me would be early September. That is still too early for us, y'all. We're hot through September. So if I were starting fall crops indoors, would actually want to start them in August. But that depends on where you're at. Some people in Zone 7 have much cooler falls than we do here in Arkansas. So just think about that timeline. Because the crops that love the cooler weather, like snap peas, they cannot deal with the heat at all. Even if they germinate, they're not going to grow and thrive. So you definitely want to wait until the nights are cooler for them. So if you plan on having some snap peas in your fall garden, just think about starting them indoors 8 weeks before you typically have your cooler night, your actual fall weather. So there's still some things that we can be direct sowing in July, which is awesome. So like pro tip, I was so excited the year I learned this, that you can still direct sow zinnias and sunflowers on July 1st and we'll still have at least likely a month of blooms before frost. Of course, your average frost date, it's different by like area, state, county, whatever, and Zone 7 does span across the whole US. But you can do like a quick Google search of your zip code, first frost date. Also, it's something you just learn as you garden, because I look online, it says our first frost day is November 15th. They won't change it. If you notice frosts coming earlier a few years in a row, USDA will not change the first frost date for an area until it's been consecutively lower for 5 years. So isn't that weird? So for us, we have actually had a first frost November 1st for, I swear it's been more than 5 years, but if I look it up online, it still tells me it's November 15th. So those are things you just learn over time and by gardening in the same area over time. So you think about, if you look at a seed packet, whether it's a flower or a seed, but especially with a flower, it's going to tell you days to germination and days to bloom. And that lets you know from the time the seed is direct sowed, when will that plant flower? Because it's going to take some time, obviously, growing its greenery. So you want to look at that days to bloom. And zinnias and sunflowers have enough time. I think you can also get it with cosmos. They do take a little bit of time because the plant for a cosmo actually gets quite bushy. And so it's putting a lot of energy into growing that greenery, which takes time, as opposed to a zinnia is oftentimes like a singular stalk with just like leaves. So same for sunflower. But so for food, things that you can be sowing, direct sowing still, you get radishes, you can do carrots, beets, turnips, kale. You can also do beans like bush beans or pole beans, Swiss chard, cucumbers, and squash, all types of squash. That includes spaghetti squash, yellow crookneck squash, zucchini squash, all the squashes, lots of squashes. They start and they grow fast and they love the heat. So you could still be getting those seeds directly in the ground right now. So July is a time in the garden where you want to keep an eye on your existing plants for disease as well as pests. When the heat comes on, it's like all the predators come out in the garden. I've already seen squash bugs in my garden. I've seen little eggs on different things. You guys have seen that in some of our garden tours where I'm finding them and picking them off. Tomato hornworm starts. So it doesn't really matter how old your tomato plant is, but when the heat comes on, your plant could be brand new or 4 months old. That's when the pests are going to come out. So you really want to keep an eye on your pests. If you're doing an organic pest control, you're probably going to need to be doing it daily, because the plant will send out, every single plant will send out a stress signal. Like I don't know if there's a sound to it or if it's an energetic wavelength sort of thing. But when a plant is hot, it's under stress during the day. It's fine, it's going to live. If you're watering it good and it's got decent shade, most plants rebound over the evening. But still, during the day, during the hottest part of the day, that plant is under stress. So it's sending out a signal, I'm kind of stressed. And the natural ecosystem in nature is when a plant is stressed, there's an insect that's going to come in and eat it, because that's the food source for that insect. And something about a plant being under stress just calls that in. So one, that's a motivator to take care of your plants, and make sure you're watering well enough, not during the middle heat of the day, and just doing your best to take care of your garden. Of course, you know, not everything is preventable. But so keep an eye on the bugs. Again, organic methods you're going to have to do on a regular, super consistent basis, probably daily. If you are okay with using things like Sowing, which is a chemical man-made insecticide, it works so great. It took me years to wean myself off of using it, because it's just science, you guys. The chemical particles get on the plant and they kill the bug. That's what they do. But plant leaves are made to uptake everything that's on it. So whether that's water or fertilizer or chemicals, those leaves are taking all that into the plant, into the root. Therefore, it's going out into the fruit that it's making, whether that's tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, whatever. There are trace amounts on that. That has been proven. It's just that a lot of people or the government thinks that minute amounts of those chemicals is okay for humans to consume. And maybe it is. And so really it's a choice as to whether you want to be an organic gardener or not. But if you're not using things like that, and you're doing more organic methods because you don't want those trace chemicals in your food that you're growing yourself to feed to your family. Because, I mean, if you want them in there, you could just buy them from the store, right? I mean, that's kind of why we're all here. But the thing is, Sowing does work. It works really well. And if you are using something like that, I've actually had to bust that out 1 or 2 times in a summer, because we ended up having some kind of infestation. There was a year we almost lost all of our potato crop due to literally bugs coming in overnight and decimating half of our crop. And that was the only way to kill them and save our plants, which it did work. But then you got, you know, you're dealing with, you just have to know you're putting chemicals on your plants, and therefore it's in your food. But anyways, so if you do the man-made ones, the best one that I can recommend, that I know my mom used the whole time I was growing up, and we usually keep on hand for emergencies, it's the powder. It's a powder that you just coat on the leaves, because then you can still bottom water and it'll just stay on the plant. The thing is, if it rains, it washes off, whatever. But again, you know, if I use something like that in my garden, it's usually like a drastic measure to try and save something. Like there's already a problem and I'm trying to deal with the problem. So just something to keep in mind, again, when your plants are just stressed. Another thing you can do to try to do organic pest control is some gardeners will use DE, which is diatomaceous earth. It is a white powder. You can buy it in like the livestock section or the garden section, because it does have many uses. For example, you can put a little bit in chicken food, and it's a natural dewormer. I guess the best way to explain it, and don't quote me on this because I could be wrong, but it's almost like a fine rock particle or mineral particle. But what it does to the insects is it just cuts them up. So they say, you know, you could coat it in like your flower bed or vegetable bed with mulch. And like if a slug or a soft belly insect like crawls across it, it just cuts them and they die. So, so it is not toxic. It's not poisonous. It comes naturally from the earth, I believe. So it's still an organic method for your plants. With that being as a powder, you could also sprinkle it on the leaves of your plants. So it can be used several different ways. This is the time of year that if you've got several different flower things going, that if your blooms have kind of lulled or you've got some like spent blooms on the bush, this is a great time to deadhead those. That will encourage the plant to push new blooms and they will continue blooming, which is wonderful and always fun. Some people are afraid if you're new to gardening to like cut blooms off of plants, but it doesn't hurt them at all. Because they are using a small amount of energy to literally hold that spent bloom on the bush. Everything that is attached to it requires energy for it to stay there. So until the plant literally like naturally drops that bloom itself. So if you go in and you cut those blooms off, or you've got some wild arms on a rose bush or something and you trim that stuff back, that allows the plant to put that little bit of energy into other stuff. So whether that is putting on a better root system, or its roots reaching down further for water, or pushing new blooms, either way. So cutting and pruning on things really encourages them to just use that energy in a different way. And this time of year, most plants are fairly established, so what that plant will want to do is just to push more blooms. Been growing garlic. Now is the time to harvest it if you haven't already. June is actually, they say, the best time to harvest garlic, because again, that's a bulb you plant in the fall, and it stays in ground over winter. Might have a little greenery in the spring. It has a lot more greenery, really kind of comes to life, but it needs that overwinter time for the bulb to bulk up. And so typically when you can tell when it's time to harvest, because the greenery will either yellow and fall over, or it will just fall over. And that's when you know to harvest it. Similar for onions too. You don't want to keep them, if you leave them in the ground too long, the bulbs aren't going to be right. This is a great time of year to be watering your plants in the morning. So everyone is pretty much evenly against watering plants in the middle of the day. And I agree, but say you have some sort of situation where you've got to just get it done and you're not going to be home for a day or two, whatever. You can water in the day, but water the base of the plant, the soil, because what stresses out the plant is the leaves getting wet, and then that shiny water, just like when you're at the lake, that shiny water on that plant kind of magnifies the sun, and it's like it's trying to cook the leaves, and it makes the plant hotter than it would have been if you didn't get it wet. So that sucks for your plants. So you can water in the evening or early morning. I really think what makes plants happiest is an evening watering. Think about it. You know, it's just like you've been out in the sun all day in the garden or at the lake or whatever, having a great time. What do you like at the end of the day? You like to rehydrate a lot of water because you sweat it out a lot. So plants are the same in that regard. So a nice watering in the evening just before the sun's going down. Also, it's a gorgeous moment to be in the garden. It's golden hour. It's lovely. Nature is gorgeous and she's singing, and it really feels a lot like a spiritual experience because it's just beautiful, you know, and you feel like, oh, I'm saving my plants. I'm such a hero, you know, because they've struggled in this July heat during the day. But if you're too busy at the end of the day, you're not home, or you're too busy and you're too tired, because that's me often. I'm often too tired by the time it's dark or even just before dark. Morning watering is fine. And I actually love morning watering. It's what I prefer. I've not watered anything this morning because I did it yesterday morning, and I don't water daily unless it's like really insane heat or a brand new plant. So in-ground stuff is every other day. That also, this is a great time for me to mention that containers need water every day. Whether that's a tree I have right here or my hanging baskets with flowers, if they're in a container, also my deck flowers, they're all just flowers, but they're in a container on the deck. Containers need watering every day in this heat. They lose moisture a lot faster than things that are in the ground, and also They don't have the ability to kind of like reach to nearby soil for moisture because they literally only have whatever moisture is in that pot. That's it. There's nothing else for them. Things that are in the ground, their roots can reach, and they do reach. So with the container stuff, you just got to make sure and you give them stuff. And one thing too is if you just put something in a container and over half of it is soil and you just have a smaller root in there, that can stand going a few more days without water. But if you have an established one, like my flowers on my deck, they have been in there for a couple of months now. I know all those root systems have grown together. There's multiple plants. The roots are taking up more than just soil alone. And so a lot of water will run through roots, and what holds on to water is the soil. So when you have a big root system, you have less soil. Therefore, water runs through it faster, dries out faster. So any of your really established, probably beautiful looking flower containers right about now need daily watering during heat. And I say heat, what I mean is like over 90. Another thing I want to mention about over 90 degrees is your tomatoes. They say tomato plants will not flower or ripen a tomato when it's over 90 degrees. I disagree. I've had that happen several times. All the time, actually. It's just that when it's over 90, you have to consider that that tomato plant is kind of stressed. So it's going to naturally, its goal is to stay alive. Its goal is not to fruit and make babies. Maple, calm down. So the way that you help it continue to flower and keep ripening the fruit, that anything that's on the vine, is to make sure all of its needs are met. For me, that is fertilizing it once a week and making sure the plant stays moist enough and it's getting its regular water. So then basically it's a little stressed in the middle of the day when the sun is hot and high, but it's got the whole rest of the day, like 20 other hours in the day, to actually just be okay and thrive. So that's something to think of, is just remember, when it's over 90, your plants just want to live. They ain't trying to do a good job for you. So if you want them to do a good job, you've got to help them out because it's over 90 and no one can control that. So you just have to help your plants. Last thing I want to mention to you guys as I wrap this video up, the last tip for gardening in July, after I fix all this mulch that my pets are constantly messing up, is that if you're growing herbs, whether they're in ground or in containers or whatever, they're probably growing decently well. And if they are starting to flower, if you want herbs to harvest, to eat, to dry, if they're for medicinal purposes, most herbs are grown for their leaves. Some new gardeners don't realize that herbs flower. Most plants flower. For some plants, flowering means it's at the end of their life and they're going to seed, so they're ready to like just die and prolong the next generation. But when it comes to herbs, like this sage here, she's not flowering, but she can. And if I wanted this sage for herbal or culinary purposes, I would want to, one, harvest that leaves just as soon as they look ready and beautiful. That's when they're going to be at their prime potency and flavor. When an herb starts to flower, it's going to shift the taste of the leaf. When you're growing, like say a basil, because it has a specific taste and you're going to eat it, you don't want to let that plant flower and then you taste your basil and it's completely different flavor profile than what you grew it for. So if you're growing herbs for culinary purposes, specifically to eat, definitely when you see flowers, pinch them off. And if you want your plant, the herb plant, to just grow bigger and bushier, pinch off all the flowers. That stimulates new growth. A lot of plants, anywhere where you break off one thing, it's going to put up two new little stems in place of that one. Zinnias are like that. That's how you can get more blooms with zinnias, is by deadheading around the plant, and it just shoots out more stems, which means more blooms. But for an herb, that means more greenery, more leaves, more herbs. I think that's it from all of my tips and things happening in July and everything that you can plant. If you like this series and you're new to my channel, go ahead and subscribe. The playlist I have started creating a couple of years ago, so we don't have every month quite filled in yet, but hopefully if you're seeing this in the future, we'll have every month done for Zone 7. It'll be on that playlist, and it'll live there in that special dedicated place so you can easily find it. And definitely, like, you know, if you scroll through that playlist and you see I've got one for September and it's only, you know, July now, I would just save it to your own playlist on YouTube. I don't know if many people do that. I'm a big YouTube watcher. I don't watch TV anymore and haven't in years. But I have playlists saved on my phone of movies I want to watch, shows I follow, and then just tips, like just random tips, also recipes. And those are all like my own private playlists that you guys can't see. But that's just because I'm on YouTube so much and it's what I watch. So anyways, yeah, if you find a helpful gardening video, whether it's this one or a different one by someone else, you can save it to like your own garden playlist to have a reminder to just easily go back and find that video and watch it later when you need it. Anyways, I hope that you found this information helpful and useful. If you have any other tips for fellow people living in Zone 7 that I did not mention, drop them in the comments for this lovely gardening community. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day.